I have a 91 Ford Mustang 5-liter, and I found that the fuel gauge doesn't work. So I made this video to show you how to change out the fuel gauge sending unit. I'm How To Bob, and you can see we have the vehicle jacked up and blocked in the front. And I'm going to remove the tank by loosening the two bolts right here and here. So I'm going to get my impact driver and remove the two bolts that hold the fuel tank straps on. Next, I'm going to remove the bolt that holds the filler neck on. It's located on the passenger side right here beside the exhaust pipe, and it's a real small nut. It just loosens up. That holds the filler neck into the tank. And then I'm going to take the wire to the fuel gauge sending unit out, and then I can lower my fuel tank down. Once I get the tank dropped on the driver's side, you can probably take out the fuel tank gauge sending unit from here, but I'm going to go ahead and take the whole tank out so I can inspect it and make sure everything else is good. So I disconnect the plug for the sending unit, and then I use my fuel line removal tool to remove the two fuel lines that are hooked up to the fuel pump located up here. I'm not sure how much slack I have in the fuel line, so I'm going to go ahead and do that before I lower this side of the tank, and those just push right off once you put the fuel line removal tool around the fuel line. Next, I'm going to disconnect the red plug that goes to the fuel pump. It's the same as the other one, and in the very back there is a vent valve. I need to remove the hose or just take the vent valve out. And then I need to slide the tank out from the grommet. Now you see the grommet is a little bit damaged here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove all the old parts, and I'll probably end up replacing it. Now that I have my tank loose, I'll slide it out the driver's side, and let's take a look at what we have for the fuel gauge sending unit. It's located right here, so I'm going to tap my lock ring counterclockwise to loosen it up. Once I get that loose, I can pull my lock ring up, and I've got to get a screwdriver on here and pry up. The gasket may be gooey or stuck to it, so it may take a little work to get the fuel tank gauge sending unit out. Once it comes loose, you kind of have to work it back and forth to get it out because there's a lot of bends and curves in the sending unit. Okay, now that I have my sending unit out, I can prepare the area. I got a new gasket to put in there, so I want to make sure I clean up all the old gasket and make sure that none of this goes down in the tank. So be very careful not to let any of this rubber pieces drip down into the tank, or you'll have a mess in your tank. So I've got that taken care of. I got my new gauge sending unit. I'll put my gasket on first and slide my sending unit down into the hole. And I want to match up the way these two pins go here and here with the sending unit. The little notches go in the pegs. And then you just push down on the sending unit and lock it into place. Then I get a new lock ring here, and I get it snugged up. Then I use a chisel or screwdriver and a hammer and tap the lock nut until it's tight. So now I've got a new grommet. You can see the old one here is pretty bad. My new one here just goes into the fuel filler neck hole, and just work it around, make sure that it's nice and tight and that it's all the way sealed up. And I use a little dish soap here smeared around the inside of the grommet. That'll help me slide the filler tube into the grommet when I go to put the tank back in. So I'm all ready now to put my tank back in. I put it back on the protector and slide it back underneath the car. Kind of line it up a little bit with the straps. And once I get it under the car, I can go ahead and put my jack underneath the tank. That'll just help lift it up into place. So now, since I have a little extra cordage here, hose, I can hook up my fuel line and it snaps into place. And I've got two fuel lines to hook up here. Next, I'm going to lift the passenger side of the tank and fit my grommet here up to the fuel filler tube up there. And once I get it up there, it's kind of tight fit, so you have to work the tank back and forth to get the filler tube inserted into the tank the correct depth. I'll know when I have the filler tube in deep enough when the bracket that holds the filler tube to the tank lines up with the tank. Once I get that in, I can go ahead and hook up my vent valve. Just go ahead and plug the tube in, and then I can plug my red plug into the fuel pump, and then I can plug my gray plug into the fuel gauge sending unit. And I want to hook my wire up at this point. There's enough here so I can go ahead and do that while the tank's halfway down. And then I'm going to slowly raise the tank up and adjust it as it goes up. And once I get my straps lined up here, I can put the bolts back in that hold the fuel tank straps in place. And then I want to crank those down pretty tight. Next, I'm going to put the bolt in on the passenger side strap, and I'll go ahead and tighten that down, and all that's left to do is to put my bracket in that holds the fuel tank filler to the tank. So this is how you change the fuel gauge sending unit in a 91 Mustang. I'm How To Bob. Thanks for watching.